everyone. Guillaume Lesueur here, host of the E-commerce Wizards podcast, where I feature leaders in business and e-commerce. Today's guest is Stephen Pope, founder of My Amazon Guy. So he built his company to over 80 employees now, and he's an expert in, well, as you guessed it, Amazon and traffic generation for SEO, search engine optimization. And this will be our topic today: traffic generation, SEO, search engine optimization, for your e-commerce site and Amazon. So before we get started, our sponsorship message: this episode is brought to you by MageMontreal. If a business wants a powerful e-commerce online store that will increase their sales, or to move piled up dormant inventory to free up cash reserves, or to automate business processes to gain efficiency and reduce human processing error, our company, MageMontreal, can do that. We've been helping e-commerce stores for over a decade. Here's the catch: we are specialized and only work on the Adobe Magento e-commerce platform. We do everything Magento. If you know someone who needs design, development, maintenance, training, support on a new site, we got their back. Email our support team, support@magemontreal.com, or go to magemontreal.com. That's MAGE Montreal.com. And also, before starting out, I want to give a shout out to Joe Valley of Quiet Light, who introduced us. So thank you, Joe, for making this possible today.
Love you, Joe. And he's got a new book out. Definitely go check out Exitpreneurs.
Yeah, I got a copy too. I started reading it. It's good stuff. So, well, Stephen, thanks for being here today.
I appreciate you having me on.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your expertise in Amazon and SEO before we get started?
You bet. So I used to be a television reporter, got to learn how to ask some tough questions. I exited that after giving a live weather shot at 10 o'clock at night in the middle of the biggest blizzard Wisconsin had experienced in over a decade. Decided I want to be home in my pajamas when everybody else was also home in their pajamas. I have over 12 years of experience in e-commerce. First thing I ever sold online was a Magic the Gathering Sliver Queen Stronghold Edition, for those nerds out there, on eBay. So I've been doing this since I, was young. Age 12 was the first time I sold anything on eBay, and just kind of snowballed from there with my entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. In terms of non-Amazon claim to fame, I increased appmix.com by 10 million uniques, organic traffic year over year. And you can look them up, APMEX, in any SEO tool, and you can guess my hire date. It's that obvious in the data. I've now since been working as an agency owner and founder for the last 3 years. We have over 160 clients, and we grow sales by increasing traffic and conversion.
Awesome. Thank you for that introduction. So, maybe what we can cover quickly: why would someone have a website if they already have an Amazon store? So many people already do have a website, and then they want to go the other way around and say, how can I expand my sales channel and also open on Amazon? But let's look at the other way around. Why, if you have an Amazon store, open also a website?
So if you're not on Amazon, you're irrelevant in the B2C space. And if you are on Amazon but don't have a website, then you're not diversified. So you need both, in my opinion. And a lot of consumers will be more comfortable making the purchase on Amazon, but there's a lot of pushback on Amazon at the same time. There's certain demographics that just simply reject Amazon as a platform. So if you want to access some of those buyers, you got to go outside of Amazon. Additionally, the more loyal a customer is to your brand, the more likely they're going to buy directly from your website. They're going to not have the anxiety or the friction to prevent them from purchasing from you, right? So what do I mean by anxiety? If I trust you with my credit card when I go on your website, that could be an anxiety. Or if I think this product is going to work or it's legitimate, it's not a knockoff, that kind of thing. Amazon solves a lot of those anxiety issues, which is why people go to Amazon. Friction would be, can I find the checkout button? Do I know what I'm supposed to do next on this web page, right? And Amazon has also solved many of those friction complaints. They make it so easy. You can one button click, check out. So if you don't have a website, though, you don't own your customers. You don't have an email base. You don't have the ability to market and control your destiny and your future. And you lose a lot of your control and your mechanisms. Many people think that it's more profitable to sell on a website, though that seems to be less and less true over time as costs for websites go up. So it's not a cost decision tree, in my opinion. It's more about a destiny control. So if you want to own your customers, you need to be on your website, marketing to them, collecting email addresses. And if you just want to live a lifestyle brand where you're sitting on the beach and you don't have to talk to anybody, and once every month you send a logistics over to your 3PL and ship it in, then sure, by all means, you could grow a brand on Amazon. But there is no such thing as hashtag passive income. I will indict that statement left and right.
Unless it's real estate. That's pretty much it.
But even real estate, there's like everybody's like, oh, I want passive income, but it's a fairy tale.
I totally agree with that. Unless it's real estate, and even that you have to maintain it, upkeep it. There's work related to that. It will be a concierge who will do it if it's not your.
You will pay your tax one way or another. Even in the real estate example, you're going to
Yeah.
have to go spend countless hours of research understanding it.
Yeah, exactly. So passive income, I agree. Like all the stuff sold online, the courses that just like some guy wrote a book, How to Get Rich, and that's all. His only claim to fame is actually he wrote the book How to Get Rich, and that's how he got rich, typically. So that's what pretty much all passive income sales to me are online. We're diverging from the topic a bit, but it's fun to talk about it while we're on this. And the only way passive income can really work is if you invest to build a great asset that people do want to come, but that asset will also typically have a lifespan in a depreciation over a year if you don't have new content, or if you don't keep it like your real estate and so on. So passive income is possible, but not the way it is sold online. You have to build almost an institution in a way, and then build a real business around it that other people will run for you. And
so a lot of people think I own and run an agency, but that is false. I run an HR company. I am in the business of people, left and right, hiring, firing, training, and dealing with people's problems. Gary Vee has some great content on the subject where he goes in depth talking about how he spends all day talking to his employees. That is my job right now. And so we're actually hiring a chief of staff. If there's a Wendy Rhodes out there listening to this podcast, hit me up, because there is so much personal capital involved in managing an agency. But by and large, if we were going to put on the most passive income scale, agencies would be on the far extreme end of not.
That's so true. It's almost hotel service and agency. Every day you need to start over, bring new towels to everybody, and clean up every room and whatnot. That's
exactly
intense. It's intense on service. Yeah, exactly. And I've heard a lot of the CEOs not complaining, but saying that they feel more like they're VP of HR these days than CEO. But
this is true.
You need to, of course, have the right staff in place. I can definitely say that hiring an HR director, and I've done it very early, we've done it as our 15th employee, made a huge difference in our ability to grow quickly and improve the quality for the work experience for all the employees. So people tend to hire them too late. And they're often surprised when I say it was my 15th employee, my HR director. So, but we had a rapid growth as well. So it's very important, the HR component. It's critical.
So we're at 80 employees, and we have half of our staff in the US, half overseas. And so the account management piece is the part that I'm heavily focused on. We've got designers and PPC specialists overseas in countries ranging from the Philippines, Turkey, Pakistan, all full time. They only work on our accounts. I find that international component is actually easier than finding the US talent to manage the accounts, interact with the clients, and deal with that. So, so yeah, for those looking for passive income, starting an agency should be low on your list. Running an Amazon business should be higher, but still isn't quite.
It should not even be on the list, an agency. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was an interesting discussion there. And let's say, while we're still talking about like why having a website, before we talk about the SEO topic here for content, for traffic generation, like how would you go about if you're, let's say, an Amazon store owner, to diverge that traffic to your store? Because Amazon clearly does not want that to happen. They want to be the biggest store in the world and sort of eat up all the small stores they can. And so how do you go about that? You don't have their email address. You just start fresh with your own pay-per-click campaign and whatnot.
So this has become harder of late, but also there is some light at the end of the tunnel. So over the years, Amazon has made it so that any of your communications, you can't give them external links. They recently are banning product inserts that are mentioning review generation, as well as QR codes that take people to outside Amazon resources. These are things that are in the works and happening. People need to pay attention and watch those radars. At the same time, and Amazon also took away the ability to publicly respond to product reviews, right? So like they've taken every component of communication with the customer away from sellers, pretty much, right? Like 95%. At the same time, they're starting to add back some controlled mechanisms that could be helpful. So you can now send an email to a customer that leaves a negative review, right? So it's like, okay, well, I can't send them to my website, but at least I can talk to them and be like, do you want a refund? Something like that, right? They're adding opt-in email communication. So if somebody follows your store, you can start communicating with them. So like your drip campaigns, your email automations, those are the sort of core things that people used to rely upon. They don't work. Everything's manual, unfortunately. Now, what you can do though, other than the make a great product and people will find you again conversation, you can put things into your packaging and your branding that really position somebody to purchase from you again. So one of my favorite, and I know I'm coming on your podcast, and so you're going to ask me questions, but if you don't mind, just for
Go
humoring me
for
for
it.
this moment,
Go for it.
what was the
I'll
last thing
humor you.
what was the last thing you bought on Amazon?
Man, I buy so much stuff on Amazon.
I know.
And I
So,
guess it was hardware tools. I
all
didn't
right.
even go to the hardware store. I just say, just ship it to me.
What was the name of the brand of the product you bought?
No clue.
That is 99% likely going to happen for most consumers. So, and even after you use that product for a year, you probably won't remember the brand name. So, by trying to go above and beyond and try and find ways to insert the branding a little bit stronger, the mechanism for that, it'll help greatly by pulling them into the site, right? So instead of them going to Amazon and looking for a hardware tool like you did, they then will say, oh my gosh, that was the best hammer I ever bought in my life. I'm going to Google the hammer's brand name. I'm going to buy more products from that brand, right? So that's one component. Now, even if you have the best hammer in the world, but you didn't convince the consumer what your brand recognized as, that's a challenge, right? So you need to ship things in a box, right? So I'm gonna grab a box here. Hold on. What's cool about this product is this is a box that we just launched. This is an Age of Sage product, right? So the brand name is plastered right smack dab on the box there. This box is a product that I launched just 3 weeks before Mother's Day. We sold $135,000 in goods. This is my personal brand. Inside the box, you can see that we have a card, some fluff to make it fun, and we also have everything you would need from a brand to position itself. So we've got a tumbler and a soap bar and a bunch of other goodies in there. And the reason I showcase this is because when somebody buys a product on Amazon, most of the time they're not buying a product, they're buying a feeling, they're buying an experience, right? And so the experience level, when you take it up a notch and say, oh my gosh, this is a thick box. I mean, this box literally cost me $2.50 to produce, right? It's like expensive. As part of the package deal, they know that they can throw a bow on this thing, throw some, some present wrapping paper and whatever on it, and give this to somebody. And they know that the experience that that person's going to have is higher caliber. So investing in some of that packaging is a big deal. Most people are too lazy to do that. And they don't take advantage of that component, right? So it's a full experience about the product.
And was this like fulfilled by Amazon? So
Yes,
you ship those nice white boxes with your logo,
correct.
clean branding to Amazon. They will put it in their ugly brown boxes when they ship it. But when they open that, at least they don't
Correct.
just have the loose products there. You have that kind of gift bundle inside that white box.
Correct. So the past of Amazon was let's make things super cheap and fast ship, right? So like that's solved. And if you're really curious to hear more about that past, one of the books I like, and this is literally the name of the book, it's called I Effing Love That Company. And he talks about that. The conclusion of that book is the future of Amazon. What's the future going to be, right? So it's going to be even faster, right? But it's also going to be higher quality and made in the US. So right now the supply chain is just gigantic wreck, right? Like costs for a 40-foot container right now. I got a quote the other day for like 25 grand. And I could get that same 40-foot container for like $4 grand 2 years ago. So the supply chain, giant wreck, everything's going out of stock, right? Like even one of my favorite bikes is a Woom bike, and I can't even get another one for my kid. It's out of stock. My glassware manufacturers are telling me, hey, we're low on glass, can't make everything. And so like this series of complications in the supply chain. So it's actually a great time to try and solve the hardest thing to do right now, which is make stuff in the US. If you do all these things, then you're going to be positioned well, regardless of whether you sell on your website or Amazon. I think that's great advice regardless. But that's the state of affairs. So to position your website, you need to have a good engine, right? You got to have that Magento component that you provide, right? It's got to be frictionless. It needs to be a second load time and a bunch of other things that I'm sure you talk about on your podcast frequently. But if you're going to go from Amazon into this space, be prepared to invest, right? Websites are expensive. They take longer to build. They take longer to produce. But once they do, they snowball, right? You earn those organic keyword rankings in Google. That's going to be a big help. Even if your plan is to not sell on the website, but to just help the brand, that's still worthy of investing in a website. For example, so two of the brands I own are called Momster and Age of Sage. I built a Momster website. I sell 1 unit a month on it, but it's organically ranked number 1 for the term Momster. That's Momstir. It's not a great website by any stretch, but it does reinforce what we do, that we sell funny wine glasses. And it's built on that particular site's built on Shopify. But it organically ranks and it helps position. And then people find, a glass that they like and they go to it, they get it on Amazon most likely, or they want to learn more about the brand or who we are and that kind of thing. Amazon's brand stores are pretty much their way of trying to kill websites, right? So Amazon.com/brand name. And that's their way of trying to say, hey, you don't need to go to a website. You can look at this brand store and learn more about this brand. And you click on the brand attribute on the detail page and it goes over to the brand store, right? Those vanity pretty URLs are pretty cool. So that's kind of what's happening, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm checking your funny glasses there. Okay, interesting stuff. All right, so we discussed a little bit why you need a website, just to have a bit of an entry here for people who didn't know about that topic. And now let's talk about traffic generation. So your SEO, search engine optimization for your e-commerce site and Amazon, like what would you do for this stuff?
So the number one thing that somebody can do on their website is to set the meta tags. Now, Amazon SEO and website SEO are very different conversations, right? So on the website, the HTML title tag of your homepage is going to have more impact than any other attribute on the website. And most people forget to set it. It's often not as easy to locate on how to edit it. And people will just have, the company name as the HTML title. That is such a missed opportunity because for a minute of effort, you can go in and set it today and make a massive impact. This is exactly what I did for Atmex.com, American Precious Metals Exchange, right? When I interviewed for the job, I noticed that they didn't chase price terms in the precious metal industry. Well, commodity pricing for gold and silver, this is a margin business, so 1 to 3 margin, tons and tons of turn though. And so most of the time when people invest in gold and silver, it's usually a hedge. They're like, oh, the dollar's going to drop and inflation is going to be gigantic, right? In reality, it actually is right now. It's 25% inflation at the moment. But regardless, so I identified that there was this keyword segment that was being ignored by the company. So I came in, I identified the segment, and then I started reprogramming the website from a code standpoint to chase price terms. So I went in, I set the HTML title, which is a tag that shows at the top. It's that purple part of the Google search result. And then the meta description, which describes the page to Google. And a lot of people have gotten so lazy at this, they just automate it based on the first paragraph on the content of the page, which is better than nothing, but it's really insignificant and it needs to be manually set because there's so much keywords that you wouldn't lead in your opening paragraph of a page that you should be putting into the meta description. So if I'm selling a silver coin and I have a graph on the price of silver today, hey, what's the price of silver? Silver prices spot, those kinds of keywords and vernacular can be worked into the descriptions to help a consumer find the page to begin with. Once we did that, we had the traffic growth within 60 days. It was so immediate just by setting the meta tags.
And your meta description, your main goal, was it really for optimization for Google in terms of like ranking in Google, or was it
Yes.
mostly about the click-through rate once you're on the listing page, that you have a better description there so that people better understand what this is and you have less bounds and so on?
So I like to run multiple phases of SEO, and I'm glad you asked that question, because you would not be optimizing for CTR in phase one by any stretch.
Click-through rate for anyone.
Yeah.
CTR.
So phase one in SEO, it's absolutely imperative that you focus on indexing, trying to get as many keywords to show up in the first couple hundred search results of Google. Once you have, 50 target keywords in striking distance between ranks 20 through 50, you can then enter phase two, which is about matriculation, right? Trying to get as many of those up into slot 1 through 10. Sometimes you might want to even run some additional phases between phase 1 and 2 there, where you're incrementally indexing keywords. That is, trying to gain another 10 or 15% of your indexing keywords, that is, show up at all in Google before you move on to matriculation strategies. Just depends on how quickly you can index and how hard it is to matriculate for them. Back in the day, people would build websites and they'd be like, I can make you rank for anything. And then they'll like build a secondary website, send in some external links and traffics and a ton of other black hat tactics, and you name it, link farms, etc.
Yeah, the link wheels, site linking to each other, and the white text on white background, keyword stuffing the footer, all that stuff doesn't work anymore.
So Google has created all these furry animal updates, from penguin to hummingbird to panda, and all of these things are to systematically destroy all of those techniques, right? So nowadays, Google's number one priority is be relevant and engaging, right? So that's what you should be focused on. So a lot of the next part of our conversation is about content production because of that. But before you enter in content production, at least, let's say you got 10 pages on your website, right? You got a home page, you got like 5 category pages and 4 product pages, whatever, right? You're just starting out. At bare minimum, take 15 minutes and set the meta tags. It's just such an easy thing to do, high impact, big results.
Agreed.
So moving into the content production strategy, the next phase, it's going to be really important that you have a lot of content, high production, right? So the Gary Vee strategy on this one would be show up 24/7, right? That strategy is very hard to do because you might run out of things to say eventually, but that is indeed the best strategy. Now, at bare minimum, we're talking 3 blog posts a week, 3 videos a week, whatever the equivalent for you is to keep that conversation going. But that content production maximizes it very well. So for example, so my Amazon guy, I think we get like 12,000 a month in search volume, right? And so almost 80% of that is driven from YouTube. That's a significantly high.
That's huge. That's rare, actually.
And so we have 750 videos on YouTube where we talk about literally every component about Amazon. Like you could just spin fire, ask me 5 questions about Amazon. I'd be like, I have 17 videos on those 5 topics, like just guarantee it. And so we have become the first place people go when they're trying to solve an Amazon problem. And that's just an educational standpoint, a golden charm. I now have 20 people that come to my website and ask to talk to us every single day without fail, like 20 people a day. So my lead gen started with content production. And so, I'm a service-based organization, so it's actually even more important for content production. But as a consumer packaged goods type of B2C type organization, your content will be less about long form educational. It'll probably be more about lifestyle, right? Instagram type posts where you have to invest in creative and photos. And those engagements will have really big impacts for your site, for SEO especially. So once we did that, so I ended up building, kind of tailoring this back over to the AppMix conversation. I built 2,000 pages of content for AppMix. I did their meta tags, and pretty much those 2 techniques, coding the site, adding content, 10 million unique visitors from organic search year over year increase.
And how long did that take to put in place?
90 days.
90 days. So you had quite a team with you, I guess, with 2,000 pages of content.
Well, I hired an agency for the content production, and I did the meta tags with myself and two others.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of content. Okay. All custom written or like spawn
Yes,
content or like okay.
all custom written. So I went around to the organization and I asked, hey, give me your content ideas. What do you think people care about? So I learned that there's silver stackers who buy silver consistently and they're always going to buy silver. I learned that there's coin collectors who are really interested in specific types of collectible coins. And then there's bullion buyers who are probably more of your hedge fund type orientation. And with that in mind, we built out content pieces and structurally answered the question for every layer of that from start to finish.
And you probably had a site with a very high domain name authority to start with,
We
and
did.
then you add this, it just becomes a multiplier, an exponential multiplier.
Correct. But in the case of like, a non-authoritative website, take my Amazon guy, for example, I started ranking for things like how to change your email address in Seller Central, right? So I got one of the answer cards for that, and that became 5% of my traffic, right? I just literally answered the most basic question because nobody else had answered it correctly. I was able to get a hit. So you could, you may not be able to predict like which pieces are going to rank, which ones are going to get the hits, but if you just, you know, micro focus in on your target demographic, what are the top 10 problems they have, right?
Yep.
So if I were to ask I know this is your podcast and I'm asking you a second question, how
Go for
dare
it.
I? But this is for funsies, right? So if I asked you, what do you think the target demographic for selling Russian mail order brides is, what would you say? And I know this is a really weird question.
My bad. Is that even legal? That thing sounds like paid for human trafficking. That thing. Mail. You said mail Russian mail order brides.
Yes. So you're flying in a wife. Yes.
My bad. I have no clue.
All right. So what you would have to figure out is it wouldn't just be men, right? So if I was selling a toothbrush, my target audience wouldn't just be somebody with teeth, right? So a lot of marketers or a lot of business owners, they're like, I just need to target everybody, right? They want to cast this big,
That does not work.
yeah, this big tent, and everybody's going to get in here. And right now with society, they're getting super woke. And I'm not going to go into politics, but the point I'm trying to make is in marketing, you actually need to profile people, right? Like you need to do the exact opposite of what's happening in society right now. That's your job as a marketer. So Russian mail order brides, the target demographic, if you go from men all the way down to the very nitty gritty, it is 3-time divorced truck drivers. And once you know and answer that question that, oh my gosh, the target demographic for Russian mail order brides is 3-time divorced truck drivers, you will figure out how obvious it is, right? Then you know that they're on the road all the time. They've been married, they've done that. They don't have time to date. They probably aren't attractive, but they have some cash. And so then you know all these things about your target demographic, and then you build the next 10 pieces of content for that specific person.
Is that a real story?
This is a real example, but I did not work on it. But I got this example from Harry Joyner. He's one of the top e-commerce recruiters. I've probably told the story more times than him now because I was so fascinated by the example, and I just think it's funny. I think it's memorable too. But basically, if you polarize your audience, you are doing marketing correctly. If I know that this item is for me and I build content around that, it'll be higher engaging, therefore higher CTR, therefore higher conversion rates, therefore higher rankings, more traffic, higher conversion. And so, for example, if I were to use like, a hand sanitizer product that's out of a watch, right? So I push this button on my hand and it spits out some hand sanitizer. Like you could target a lot of people with that. You could target joggers and moms. You could target kids at the playground. But if you try and target both, you will fail. You need to build one product for the kid, one product for the mom jogger, and call it a day, right? So I'm on my jog and I want to go to Chipotle and I click this button and it dispenses my hand sanitizer.
Yeah,
Whatever.
because the other one should have like a Mario Bro or a little dragon or something, and mom won't
Correct.
like the styling.
Yeah. And even, even with that said, right? But even if you just had the photographs of the consumer mixed up like that on a listing, you will lose the audience. But if your website is hyper tailor focused, where you polarize that audience and you're all about that one person, that one archetype, that one demographic, hyper specific, then you will build a community. A community will take all of the work that you've done to the next level. And one of the books you might want to read is called Micro Famous, and it's all about building niche communities. And he does it through podcasting and book writing. But there's a lot of ways that you can build a community, and my favorite is to just give value for a very tailored audience.
Yeah, it makes sense. It resonates with what I've seen work with my own clients there, what you're saying too. Content marketing strategies are extremely powerful. The need for you to invest the time to generate all that content, though. So if you just have 2 3 pieces of content and you find it tedious, well, just delegate that or outsource it. But definitely that works. It's part of the most powerful strategy. It's something that we do ourselves. We're building up, the blog, the podcast, and all kind of stuff like this. And it's a strategy I really believe in, and seen great success for companies doing this. So that would be your advice to someone starting the site. Okay, start right away your content strategy. Do, of course, your SEO or the meta tags. And how fast do you think they can see results with that kind of content approach? Because
45 to 60 days, almost guaranteed.
okay, if you've
And
targeted it right.
if you put the effort in and you go full blast, you will see the results that quickly. Even if the only thing you do is set the meta tags, you will see results within 45 days. And
Okay,
you can track it. You don't have to take my word for it, right?
for sure.
Use an SEO tool like Ahrefs, SEMrush, whatever your cup of tea is, right? I used to use Conductor Searchlight back in the day. And whatever tool you use, set out your goal. I'm going to focus on these 50 keywords, then put those keywords in the right locations, and then see what the ranking changes do. And if you haven't indexed for anything, then you start indexing for something, that's a win. If you've already indexed, but you move up the keyword rankings, then that's also a win. And then finally, if you get the traffic boost, that's a win. And if the traffic's boosting and you get the sales, that's the win, right? So you want to, that's the staircase of effort results and KPIs, depending on the phase you're on.
Okay, and let's help, let's say, any merchant going past any kind of psychological blockage they might have with this technique. So you were, in your case, working for a large company with huge domain name authority, and that was able to finance 2,000 pieces of content in 90 days, which is a huge amount of work and money. So what about the smaller shop? Let's say you're like a $1 million a year e-commerce store or Amazon store. Like, how much should they put in this kind of strategy? Or
So people should be spending 11% of their gross sales on PPC. Tacos is often what it's referred to in the Amazon world. So if people are putting 11 cents on the dollar for everything that they generate back into PPC, what is the appropriate amount to put into SEO? I would argue somewhere between 5 and 10%. At bare minimum 5, because if you're putting 11 cents into PPC and you're not putting at least 5 into SEO, you're short-sighted, without a doubt. Yeah. And SEO is going to produce for years to come. If I got hit by a truck today, my company would still grow at similar exponential rates that we've had for the last 3 years, simply because my YouTube channel brings them in, even if I didn't produce a single new piece of content.
And you've gotten yourself out of sales depending on which kind of merchants we're talking about. When you have more like high end, let's say bicycles, and then you need an expert that we'll talk about because it's a $3,000 transaction. So then sometimes the owner is still stuck in sales. So you've got yourself out of sales.
I'm currently out of sales right now, about 95%. My father, Dan Pope, runs the sales. So he's a retired weatherman out of Utah. And I put him in charge of sales in January. And so on occasion, he'll bring me in to close a deal. But by and large, I've empowered him with full contract control under certain parameters, and he gets the deal closed. That dude loves to talk to people. So if you're looking to hire an Amazon agency and you want to talk to my friendly father, go to myamazonguy.com and you can talk to Dan today.
That's pretty awesome. Okay, so that's good. And the 5 to 10% for SEO, I agree. And just to explain that short-sightedness syndrome here that we're talking about, is because the cost for acquisition with your pay-per-click will change over years. And we have a very good history, especially with Google, that you can see the pricing going up and how much it costs you to acquire one more customer, your spending tends to go up year over year, not just by 2% inflation. And also, the moment you stop advertising, you stop the inbound of leads. So you're sort of hooked to that thing, and you should start to diversify and have your own source of traffic from SEO.
PPC is taking a cocaine hit, and it's necessary, but if you only do cocaine, you're going to die, right? And so with SEO, that is your wheat bread. You're going to sow your wheat into the field, and it's not sexy, but you will continuously reap it, and it will continuously produce over time.
And there are some colorful examples.
Russian malware brides, cocaine. What else can we do here?
This episode will be labeled with explicit. Yeah.
Entertaining at the very least, I hope.
I hope to, and valuable for the content that we bring over. Okay, so you build content, you do your meta tag, that's for your website. Is there any other tactics or strategy that you would recommend to add for an e-commerce site and or Amazon?
So at bare minimum on your website, get your page load times down to a second and a half. Your paint loads are extremely important due to the Hummingbird update. That's on the super technical side, which is why I didn't dive into that component. There's also a lot of things that you can do to code the site outside of meta tags, but that's definitely the starting point. But there's a lot of features, basically tagging your site to convince Google what each page is about. There's a lot of schema and markup that you can put into play. Those are very, very important things. The other thing on Amazon, I'm the My Amazon guy. And so I would say when you first launch your product on Amazon, have everything ready day one. Have your A+ content, your enhanced brand content, your designs, your photos, 6 photos of video. Video ads are incredibly important right now. Make sure you have those. Have a fully optimized title that's lengthier, 5 bullet points, and a description all ready day one. Do not launch your product unless you have everything ready. Your product should be at FBA and it should have a Prime badge. The list could go on and on and on. And that's generally because it's so complicated and there's so many things to get done. We try and simplify it back down to those 4 things, which is SEO, PPC, catalog management, and design. And you can subset those 4 things into 2 categories, which is traffic and conversion. And so focus on those things, get those core things done. The future of Amazon will be external traffic, manufacturing high quality products in the States. If you solve for that, you'll have a future on Amazon and you'll be better off.
Okay. And then that reason why you need all that stuff ready for day one when you launch with Amazon is because Amazon will give you sort of that honeymoon period that it doesn't know how your product will perform and give you the benefit of the doubt sort of for a certain amount of time. And you better perform right off the bat here. Otherwise, you won't have a great seller in the near future.
So back to my Age of Sage box, which I have in my hands here. We did 135,000 gross sales in 3 weeks going into Mother's Day. And we had 0 reviews running $10,000 in PPC ads. And so we had everything ready day one, every attribute optimized. And because we did, we were able to take advantage of, get this, 5 million impressions available for Mother's Day gift during the month of May. 5 million. That's not an exaggeration. And that's up more than 2x over COVID bump last year, which was up 2x the year before that. So if you're wondering if there's still room to grow on Amazon, the answer is clearly yes. The field of just that one keyword, 2x year over year, which 2x the year before that. And so I rode that wave. I was able to organically rank for that term that had 5 million impressions in slot number 1. And I'm not slot number 1 anymore, but I was during the time of Mother's Day, and it's when it was really important. And so if you do all these things, you'll leapfrog the keyword rankings, you'll have position, and you will be able to convert on it very, very well. And you don't have to have 100 reviews on your listings. People think fake reviews are abundant, unfortunately.
And that $10,000 PPC ad that gave you those sales and that 5 million impression there was over which period of time?
3 weeks, all in May.
3 weeks,
leading right into Mother's Day.
Okay, so it's an all-in. You're ready to hit the road. You're running, everything ready to go, and then 10K in ads in 3 weeks, and that's it. So it's the right way to go, I believe. If you've done everything right.
If I had done a third of what I did, I wouldn't even have had 5,000 in sales. You have to do it all. You have to have PPC, SEO, catalog, and design all tip top shape day one.
And your SEO, you're talking like the on-page listing SEO with the keywords and so on.
Back end search term field as well, which is kind of less used on websites these days. There is an actual keyword field still on websites. Most people believe it's not factored into Google's 200 uses of SEO factors, but I'm a betting man, and I think it probably still is. So we do fill it out typically on websites, but on Amazon, the search term field 100% has probably 11% of the impact, according to the A20 algorithm update.
Okay, that's an important impact. And when you say also SEO for Amazon, are you driving traffic to your Amazon listing from, let's say, Google ranking or from other sources that?
I recommend it, but I do not. So as an agency, we've had to really defend our inch wide, mile deep ground, and that is everything within Seller Central. So because I don't offer the external traffic service, I don't practice it for my own brands. So that example with the Age of Sage box for the Mother's Day kit with a tumbler and 2 soap bars and a bath bomb, 0 external traffic. I do recommend it, but the reason we don't practice it is because it's impossible to track. Amazon does offer some beta programs for attribution. They all suck. They don't work. And so because of that, we can't look a CEO of a brand in their eyes and say, "Hey, look, come spend $10,000 on Google PPC and shoot it over to Amazon," because we have no idea what the result of it will be.
Right. Okay. I understand. If you can approve the return on investment, it's just old-fashioned advertising that you had no tracking. It was that famous billionaire saying, "I know that 50% of my advertising work, but I don't know which 50%." So
And
that was back in the day.
it exasperates that problem greatly.
Yes, exactly. Okay. All right. Any last thoughts on SEO that could help an e-commerce store grow?
It's not set it and forget it. This is a continually worked on attribute. You wouldn't launch a PPC campaign for 10 grand and never modify it.
No.
Don't
No.
do the same thing on SEO. You must modify your structures. So it is not set it one time and walk away. It is work on it every month until you sell your brand. I almost said until you die.
All right. That's a long time. Okay. Pretty good. And you do have a podcast, Stephen. So where can people find you and find the podcast?
So we're a visual podcast, youtube.com/my Amazon guy. Absolutely would love additional subscribers. Stop by. You can come in and go into my comment section, ask any Amazon question. I will answer it personally myself. So I try and spend all of my time on marketing facilities as the founder.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being here today, Stephen.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And you guys all have a great rest of your week.